Hi, welcome to Far From Eden. Happy Sunday. What in the world do fairy tales have to do with any kind of issues to do with men? Well, it turns out actually kind of a lot because we used to know things back in the day, as the kids say. We used to know things. We used to be more in touch with the truth. And now it's just whatever truth you like. Choose your truth. People are saying, my truth. That's not a thing. It's not a thing. There is truth. There is objective truth. And if you believe that, welcome. And if you don't, welcome. Stick around. Maybe you'll hear something that'll change your mind. Because on Sundays, we do read fairy tales. We read from the Grimm brothers. And it got started because I wanted to see what was so different in the ones that we know, like Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, the ones that Disney has made movies of and then made more movies of. And it turns out, oh boy, there was a lot to learn about men and women and what we used to know. So today we are going in order of my book. And well, not today. We are going in order of my book. And in my book, the next one that we have not read yet is The Grateful Beasts. And I'm excited because I'm hoping it's about animals. You never know with the title of these things. You never know what lessons might be in there. And sometimes it's like, but I want to go through all of them. I'm determined to go through all of them now. And a couple of you guys have sent me PDFs of the full list of Grimm Brothers fairy tales as published early, 1812, you guys, 1812. Think about that. I mean, that is like, for Americans, that's a long time ago. With such a young country, it's like, it's a long time ago. And it's so much has changed in the world. Things have moved. Objectively, they've moved to the left. I mean, they just have. Think about, 1812, when was the Communist Manifesto written? That's, you know what I mean? So think about the time in history and how these fairy tales are hidden. Even in my book, which is old, it's from the early 20th century, but there are changes made from the oldest versions to this one. In one of them, it removed Christ, and that's when I abandoned this book. And I said, okay, well, we're going to go with the oldest that I can find. And like I said, you guys have sent me it. I went through the list. There are so many Grimm Brothers fairy tales. It is so long. It's like, I can't even remember how many it was. It's a lot. We have a lot. It's exciting. I'm glad there's so much, but I couldn't find this one. It's called The Grateful Beast, and the other name is Fritz and Friends was the only other one I could find, and I didn't find it. So this is the earliest one of the Grateful Beasts I could find. I had to, look. It's probably the same as what's in my book back there, but that guy's gonna fall apart. So we print out, because I'm a print it out and read it type of girl. So that's what we do here. Old school. Very old school. So this paper I don't need. So as usual, I've not read this one. So we're gonna go through it together. And I love y'all's take on these fairy tales. I always learn from what you guys say in the chat about the lessons you've learned and what you took from it. Because a man brain and a woman brain, they're very different. And yeah, so let's get started. Hopefully I didn't forget to say anything. Who knows? Okay. Oh, and happy Labor Day weekend to you guys. Holidays are just anymore for me. But and I always think of you guys when it's a holiday weekend of any type, be it Thanksgiving, Christmas especially, just all the holidays. Because if you are, well, wherever you are in the realizing, men are cast aside, disposed of, sometimes before they even get started with a family, which can be a blessing in disguise. But I think of you guys on these holidays because I know that it's a time when you might remember when everybody got together. And now it's like that country song by Toby Keith. That's my dog and that's my car. Wait, that's my house. And I have to sing it to know. But you know the song I'm talking about? That's my house. That's my car. That's my dog in my backyard. That's my kids. That's my wife. Who's that man running my life? That's what I think of when it's a holiday. I just think, oh gosh, she's got the kids this weekend. Maybe it's the first weekend after your family's destroyed. Or maybe you never got started and everybody's talking about the family this and the family, and you're like, no. So anyway, happy Labor Day weekend. Let's have a fairy tale. The Grateful Beasts. A certain man who had lost almost all his money resolved to set off with the little that was left him and travel into the wide world. This is going to be a great one to hear what you guys have to say. Then the first place he came to was a village where the young people were running about crying and shouting. "What is the matter?" asked he. "See here," answered they. "We have got a mouse that we make dance to please us. Do look at him. What a droll sight it is, how he jumps about." But the man pitied the poor little thing and said, "Let the mouse go, and I will give you money." So he gave them some and took the mouse and let him run, and he soon jumped into a hole that was close by and was out of their reach. He rescued the little mouse. He was the only one that saw the suffering. Then he traveled on and came to another village, and there the children had got a donkey. They use a different word, but I'm trying to be very YouTube friendly. Okay, I'll read that sentence again, I'm sorry. Then he traveled on and came to another village, and there the children had got a donkey that they made stand on its hind legs and tumble, at which they laughed and shouted and gave the poor beast no rest. So the good man gave them also some money to let the poor donkey alone. Thank God. At the next village he came to, the young people had got a bear that had been taught to dance, and they were plaguing the poor thing sadly. Then he gave them too some money to let the beast go, and the bear was very glad to get on his 4 feet and seemed quite happy. Aw, I love this story. It's he has a lot of empathy. But the man had now given away all the money he had in the world and had not a shilling in his pocket. Then said he to himself, "The king has heaps of gold in his treasury that he never uses. I cannot die of hunger. I hope I shall be forgiven if I borrow a little. And when I get rich again, I will repay it all." Oh no. Oh no. He managed to get into the treasury. This is not a good idea. He's gonna steal. He did all that good, and now he's gonna steal. And he's trying to justify it. Then he managed to get into the treasury and took a very little money. But as he came out, the king's guards saw him. So they said he was a thief and took him to the judge. And he was sentenced to be thrown into the water in a box. They don't play around. The lid of the box was full of holes to let in air, and a jug of water and a loaf of bread were given him. Okay. All of a sudden, it fell off. The lid flew open, and there stood his old friend, the little mouse, who had done him this service. And then came the donkey and the bear and pulled the box ashore, and all helped him because he had been kind to them. Aww. But now they did not know what to do next and began to consult together, when on a sudden a wave threw on the shore a beautiful white stone that looked like an egg. Then the bear said, "That's a lucky thing. This is the wonderful stone, and whoever has it may have everything else that he wishes." So the man went and picked up the stone and wished for a palace and a garden and a stud of horses. And his wish was fulfilled as soon as he had made it. And there he lived in his castle and garden with fine stables and horses. And all was so grand and beautiful that he never could wonder and gaze at it enough. I'm smiling and chuckling a lot because many of you know that I am, I suppose, a reformed horse girl. I used to prioritize horses in my life and all of that kind of stuff. And so I'm just kind of laughing. I forgot to get this on my hand. I'm just kind of laughing that was one of the things he wished for, a palace and also a barn full of horses. It is a luxury. Horses are indeed a luxury, not a necessity. And you guys know that. I know it now. So, okay. So, fine stables and horses. After some time, some merchants passed by that way. "See," said they, "what a princely palace. The last time we were here, it was nothing but a desert waste." They were very curious to know how all this had happened. So they went in and asked the master of the palace how it had been so quickly raised. "I have done nothing myself," answered he. "It is the wonderful stone that did it all." "What a strange stone that must be," said they. Then he invited them in and showed it to them. I don't know if that's such a good idea. I don't know if it's such a good idea to just be telling them that kind of stuff. I have issue with that. This man needs better boundaries. Oh no. So he shows him the stone. I don't think that's so good. They asked him whether he would sell it and offered him all their goods for it. And the goods seemed so fine and costly that he quite forgot that the stone would bring him in a moment 1,000 better and richer things, and he agreed to make the bargain. What? Why? How did he forget that? Wow. Scarcely was the stone, however, out of his hands before all his riches were gone. And he found himself sitting in his box in the water with his jug of water and loaf of bread by his side. The grateful beasts, the mouse, the donkey, and the bear, came directly to help him, but the mouse found she could not nibble off the lock this time, for it was a great deal stronger than before. Then the bear said, "We must find the wonderful stone again, or all our endeavors will be fruitless." Again, going back to my video, was it last week? I think the fairy tale last week when I was like, this is a big reason why the women choose the bear. Because they're in the stories, they're so good and friendly. And all they hear in stories, aka media, is men are horrible and scary. Bears are helpful and friendly. Like that's where we are. Oh boy. So they said, if they don't find the stone, all our endeavors will be fruitless. The merchants, meantime, had taken up their abode in the palace. Oh. So away went the three friends, and when they came near, the bear said, "Mouse, go in and look through the keyhole and see where the stone is kept. You are small, nobody will see you." The mouse did as she was told, but soon came back and said, "Bad news! I have looked in, and the stone hangs under the looking glass by a red silk string, and on each side of it sits a great cat with fiery eyes to watch it." Uh-oh. Oh boy. Then the others took counsel together and said, "Go back again and wait till the master of the palace is in bed asleep. Then nip his nose and pull his hair." Away went the mouse and did as they directed her. And the master jumped up very angry and rubbed his nose and cried, "Those rascally cats are good for nothing at all. They let the mice eat my very nose and pull the hair off my head." Then he hunted them out of the room, and so the mouse had the best of the game. Next night, as soon as the master was asleep, the mouse crept in again and nibbled at the red silken string to which the stone hung, till down it dropped. And she rolled it along to the door. But when it got there, the poor little mouse was quite tired. So she said to the donkey, "Put it in your foot and lift it over the threshold." This was soon done, and they took up the stone and set off for the water side. Then the donkey said, "How shall we reach the box?" But the bear answered, "That is easily managed. I can swim very well. And do you," oh, it said donkey this time. "I can swim very well. And do you, donkey, put your 4 feet over my shoulders, mind, and hold fast, and take the stone in your mouth. As for you, mouse, you can sit in my ear." This reminds me of the fairy tale we read. Oh my goodness gracious. I can't remember what it's called. But it was a group of animals, and they all, and I didn't know the full message of this fairy tale that I can't remember the name of right now, and I'm so sorry that my brain deletes important information that I don't know I'm gonna need. Anyway, so what you guys will remember which one it was. So it was a group of animals, and they all worked together. And you guys said that was a big part of that fairy tale's message, is that you can get things done when you work together. And I think that's a really important message that these fairy tales provide. And I'm going to also bring it back to something I said actually in last night's video, which was long, so I said a lot of things. But what I was saying is that humans are not meant to be isolated. We're not meant to be alone. We're supposed to be with each other. And especially after 4 years ago, we're more isolated than ever before. Humans are not creatures that are meant to be alone. We're social creatures. We do better when we And I think the Grimm brothers collected stories to pass on messages that were important to continue through culture, to teach to the children, to pass on. And I think it is helpful to say bear, mouse, donkey, because you're thinking to yourself, well, those, you don't normally see those guys all working together. But in a story they are, and I think it inspires the idea that I'm not saying diversity is our strength. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that within a culture, you can have different strengths and work together. And that is a good thing. So I'm picking that up right now, thanks to you guys telling me about the fairy tale that I can't remember the name of, which is, it'll pop into my head at 2:00 in the morning, probably. Okay. So they've got this, they're all working together, and the bear's swimming, the donkey's on his shoulders, and they're all working together. And the mouse is what is the mouse doing? Let's see. The bear can swim very well. The donkey puts his 4 feet over his shoulders. Mind and hold fast, and take the stone in your mouth. As for you, mouse, you can sit in my ear. That's right. That's right. It was all settled thus, and away they swam. After a time, the bear began to brag and boast. We are brave fellows, are not we, donkey? Said he. What do you think? But the donkey held his tongue and said not a word. Why don't you answer me? Said the bear. You must be an ill-mannered brute not to speak when you're spoken to. Indeed. When the donkey heard this, he could hold no longer, so he opened his mouth. Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Don't! Why does it always get messed up? Why don't you answer me? Oh, and then he could hold no longer, so he opened his mouth and dropped the wonderful stone. I could not speak, said he. Did not you know I had the stone in my mouth? Now 'tis lost, and that's your fault. But do but hold your tongue and be quiet, said the bear, and let us think what's to be done. Bragging is not good. Then a council was held, and at last they called together all the frogs, their wives and families, relations and friends, and said, a great enemy is coming to eat you all up, but never mind. Bring us up plenty of stones, and we'll build a strong wall to guard you. The frogs, hearing this, were dreadfully frightened and set to work, bringing up all the stones they could find. At last came a large, fat frog, pulling along the wonderful stone by the silken string. And when the bear saw it, he jumped for joy and said, now we have found what we wanted. So he released the old frog from his load. Oh boy. Grimm fairy tales end quickly. What is it gonna be? So he released the frog from his load and told him to tell his friends they might go about their business as soon as they pleased. Okay. Then the 3 friends swam off again for the box, and the lid flew open, and they found that they were but just in time, for the bread was all eaten and the jug almost empty. But as soon as the good man had the stone in his hand, he wished himself safe and sound in his palace again, and in a moment there he was, with his garden and his stables and his horses, and his 3 faithful friends dwelt with him, and they all spent their time happily and merrily as long as they lived. It's a happy ending, but it took some turns. I don't know how I feel. If I was reading this to children, I would point out that moral relativism is not good. And unfortunately, I see that with these friends. I mean, they just lied to the frogs to get them to bring up all the stones. Lying's not good, no matter when you do it. And what was the other thing? Oh, well, he stole from the king, and he was saying, well, it's just a little bit, and I'll pay it back later. He did have a consequence for that. But I don't know, were there consequences for lying to the frogs? I don't think so. I don't think so. And if I were reading this to children, I would definitely have to point that out. Because, well, that's the job of a mother, right? So many of you have told me that these fairy tales on Sunday, there's a bit of a maternal, I don't want to use the word vibe, but there's a maternal feeling. And I understand that. And I also understand that there is a lack of mothering going on. We have people who have birthed children, but we don't have a society that celebrates mothering, motherhood. I think there are just so many that if you said to them, what does it mean to be a mother? What is the job of a mother? I don't know if they would know. That's a specific role. And in my mind, it has certain responsibilities, duties. And it's gotten really muddled and confused. And many are like, well, I provide for my kids. And it's like, well, that's great. But who's teaching them? Especially in the first few years of their lives. Who is teaching them the Creator? Who is teaching them about truth in a way that their little minds can understand, like with stories like this? You know, there's so many opportunities to teach children and share with children how to be through these stories. Do kids even get read to anymore? Were you guys read to when you were young? I'm actually very curious about that. I was read to. And it had a big impact. My dad read to me. He read, do you guys know that the British people might know the Mr. Men books and the Little Miss books? Like, oh my gosh, what were they? Mr. Grumpy. They had lessons in them, basically. It was, Little Miss, I remember Little Miss Fickle. And it was great because they had, some things they needed to work on to be better. And you learned it with each book. I love those books. I gotta find those books again. Goodness gracious. They're so good. My mom read to me I know there were more than just this, just these books, but my mom read to me children's Bible stories. And I remembered the book and I actually found it again. It's the one that's sitting at the bottom. I was like, I got to find that book again. I just want to have it. And we'll probably read from that one of these days too. Talk about truth. Anyway, so they read to me and my dad would do the funny voices. He would do the funny voices and give them silly accents and stuff like that. That is, I'm really happy and grateful that I had that. And I I used to read to my sister when we were little. I would read to her Babysitter's Club books, like in the middle of the night. We'd be up in my little twin bed, and we're just 2 years apart, and I'm reading Babysitter Club books to her and doing the voices and stuff like that. And yeah, it's a need that we all have. It is a need, and we're not getting it. And these lessons don't seem to be being learned. These things seems like people expect kids to learn this stuff in school. No, they're not going to, because school is where they learn their own truth. You know, it's not where they learn right from wrong. They should learn that from their parents at home, from their mother and father at home, but especially from their mother in those first few years when you're starting to teach them no, and be gentle. When they're petting the dog or something, you have to gently correct them, and you have to explain why on their level and model those things. These stories are great for that, and it's not happening. It's an example of part of our culture that's just been like it's disappearing. You guys remember Back to the Future? I have so many references. Tell me you're Gen X without telling me you're Gen X. You guys remember Back to the Future where the picture is like fading because of these changing things? That's what it seems like. That's what the past is doing. They're taking it away. Very, very 1984-esque, where Winston is basically changing things, deleting things. So once again, there's not really a message about, a particular issue that faces men, except that there's such a lack of real mothering and gentleness and femininity. And it's not wrong for you guys to want that. It's not wrong. There's nothing wrong with it. You're not bad. I know they tell you that. It's not true. How dare you appreciate femininity? Oh, also, femininity, yesterday's video. Goodness gracious, that dating profile where she said, I'm a feminist, but I'm feminine. Like, what? That means I can fake it. I can play. I can act feminine. That's not how it is. Could you imagine if the guy's like, well, I can act masculine, but when it comes down to it, I'm going to be in a ball in the corner crying. No, like you're either feminine or you're not, and you can't be both of those things at the same time. You just can't. So there is a lack of true femininity for men. It's a good thing for men. It does help temper them. It tempers the inner Genghis Khan. We all have that extreme of our natures, and the male side and the female side temper each other in the most beautiful complementary way. The powers that be want to change that because they don't want us to work together, where your strengths and my strengths are perfectly intermingled. They want to change what the strengths are of women, tell them that they're a girl boss, and that motherhood is oppression and wifehood is oppression. So they'll, scoff at it and avoid it and not prioritize it. And then pretty soon they go, oh, wow, Well, I've run out of time. The egg carton is empty. That phrase is funny, but it does. And then they break people apart, and then so there's no masculinity tempering the women, and there's no femininity tempering the men. So funny that it all came back to the idea of working together, and that was a big part of what this story was about. Maybe it's that whatever I see, this is the lens I see it through. But I mean, in the beginning, in the beginning, he created the male and female. There are just some truths that are just right there in the beginning of that middle book there. And yes, I think it was Rojas asked, do I read King James? Yes, I do. I don't know if you'll approve of that or not, but I do read King James version. So it's what I've always read. And it feels like home to me. So thank you guys for joining me on this journey with the mouse, the donkey, and the bear. Once again, we have a bear. Grizzle, grizzle. And I really appreciate you guys. I hope you're having a lovely Sunday, and I hope you fed your souls. I love Sundays with you guys. I love Fairy Tale Day. Please like the video. Please help the fairy tale, because it's not the most popular. I'm going to do it anyway, and I still think that it's beneficial. I really do. I think that there's people out there that would benefit from hearing grim fairy tales. And at the end of the video, there should be, if I know what I'm doing, a link to the full playlist. And so, can delve into some of the other ones that we've done. We've done almost 20, which is amazing. But there's so many. There's so many, which I was afraid we were going to run out. Now I'm like, oh, we're not. Good. So take care, you guys. I love you. Feed your souls. Protect your peace always. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Okay? Bye.